Good morning and thank you for joining us on Africa This Morning. It is the 24th of March 2014. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
Still missing. Families of Chinese passengers spill their frustrations on Malaysian officials. Crimea situation. Diplomats are in Kyiv to defuse the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Health crisis in Guinea. Doctors Without Borders launches emergency medical intervention following reports of Ebola virus. Turkey on Twitter. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's decision to ban Twitter is deemed a digital coup.
We'll start off in the Balkans. Diplomats are in Kiev to defuse the Ukraine-Russian crisis as Ukrainians on both sides of the conflict raise pro-Russian and pro-Ukraine flags in Crimea. This comes as the Ukrainian base was seized and the naval base surrendered as Russia consolidates its control in Crimea.
In the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk, pro-Moscow protesters fly the Russian flag. They want their deposed president, Viktor Yanukovych, this is his hometown, put back into power. They're hoping Russia, which annexed Ukraine's Crimea region the day before, might help make that happen. Russia's takeover of the Black Sea Peninsula has been mostly bloodless, but it's still the worst East-West conflict since the Cold War. In Ukraine's capital, Kiev, the diplomacy continues. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier met with Ukraine's Prime Minister. He cautioned the Ukraine-Russia conflict mustn't create a new division of Europe.
The integration of Crimea to the territory of the Russian Federation is an event that is in violation of international law, and it conjures up the danger of splitting Europe. Our experience and lessons learned over decades tell us that this is a situation we cannot accept, as we cannot allow bloodshed to repeat again.
Das Blutvergießen zurückkehrt.
UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon was also in Kiev. He arrived Friday in a gesture of solidarity and support for Ukraine's fledgling pro-Western government. The same government that lost control of Crimea to Russia shortly after taking power.
And Ukrainian people have just gone through a trauma that no country should experience. I'm here to show my solidarity to the people and government of Ukraine.
Russian troops have surrounded this Ukrainian airbase in Crimea, one of the few bases still controlled by Ukraine following Friday's annexation. They've threatened to storm the base if the men don't surrender. And in Crimea's Sevastopol harbor, the few Ukrainian troops still on board this naval ship raised the Ukrainian flag on Saturday, defiant against Russia's Black Sea Fleet stationed here. But most of Ukraine's forces in Crimea are gradually leaving their bases, powerless to stop Moscow's takeover of this peninsula.
Doctors Without Borders launched an emergency medical intervention following reports of the Ebola virus in southern Guinea, where an outbreak of the hemorrhagic fever has left more than 50 people dead and is now reported to have spread to its neighboring country of Sierra Leone. Guinea identified the Ebola virus on Saturday as the source of a highly contagious epidemic raging through its southern forest as the death toll continued to rise. Experts in the West African nation who had earlier been unable to identify the disease, whose symptoms, diarrhea, vomiting and bleeding, were first observed 6 weeks ago. But scientists in the French city of Lyon confirmed it was Ebola, the Guinea Health Ministry reported. To date, no treatment or vaccine is available for Ebola, which kills between 25 and 90% of those who fall sick, depending on the strain of the virus, according to the World Health Organization. The disease is transmitted by direct contact with blood, feces or sweat, or by sexual contact or unprotected handling of contaminated corpses. Medical aid group Doctors Without Borders (MSF) said in a statement it would strengthen its team of 24 doctors, nurses, logisticians and experts in hygiene and sanitation already in Guinea. The organization has set up isolation units for suspected cases in the southern region of Nzerekore and is looking for people who may have had contact with the infected. The most recent epidemic in the DRC infected 62 people and left 34 dead between May and November 2012, according to the country's Ministry of Health. There are fears it could be used in a biological weapons attack. And back to Kenya, gunmen have killed at least 4 people after opening fire in a church in Likoni, Mombasa County. Confirming the incident, the Kenya Red Cross says the gunmen shot indiscriminately at worshippers, leaving a massive number of casualties. The Joy of Jesus Church in Likoni, Mombasa County was the target of the Sunday morning attack. The gruesome attack comes barely a week after 2 Al-Shabaab terrorists were arrested with explosives and weapons headed for a major attack in Kenya's coastal city. The incident occurred even as the government promised to intensify security in the country after the Westgate attack that killed 60 people in September last year.
Blood splashed across a church floor near Mombasa. Authorities say the Kenyan church was packed when 2 hooded gunmen stormed inside and opened fire at worshippers. 3 people were killed in the attack, which left others wounded. The Likoni police chief described the assault.
As worshippers were trying to prepare themselves for the service, it is alleged that 2 men stormed the church and one of them started firing randomly at the worshippers.
3 children are being treated at Mombasa's main hospital, the same emergency ward where one of the victims died, according to a medic. The other 2 died on the scene. No one has yet to claim responsibility for the attack.
As the world enters its 3rd week in the search of the missing Malaysian airline jetliner, the Australian Prime Minister says planes searching for the missing flight MH370 have spotted objects in the southern Indian Ocean.
Search planes leave base near Perth on Sunday to resume their hunt for missing flight MH370 in the southern Indian Ocean. But Australia's Prime Minister Tony Abbott says they now have another possible lead to go on.
Yesterday, one of our civilian search aircraft got visuals on a number of objects in a fairly small area in the overall Australian search zone. Finally, the search is being joined today by 4 additional aircraft, 2 Chinese aircraft and 2 Japanese Orions.
As with previous sightings of floating objects, there's nothing yet to connect them to the missing Malaysia Airlines jet and its 239 passengers and crew. But Abbott says the development is a cause for hope, at least.
It's still too early to be definite, but obviously we have now had a number of very credible leads and there is increasing hope, no more than hope, that we might be on the road to discovering what did happen to this ill-fated aircraft.
On Saturday, China said it had a new satellite image of an object some 120 kilometres from the Australian sighting.
Still on the missing jetliner, as the wait for information on the whereabouts of the missing plane take its toll, families of some of the Chinese passengers have vented their anger against the Malaysian officials over the missing plane, even as the satellite images emerge.
Families of some of the Chinese passengers aboard missing flight MH370 have gathered together in Beijing to wait for news. On Saturday, their frustrations spilled over again into an angry backlash against Malaysian officials who they believe have mishandled the search.
We are here waiting for you 14 days. We want to know what happened, what the reality is. We're not here only listen to you. We want to ask you.
The Malaysian officials left the briefing without answering any questions. The angry relatives believe the Malaysian government is covering up information about the fate of the plane and its 239 passengers and crew and delaying recalibration of the search. Malaysia's transport minister said on Saturday that China now had more satellite images from the southern Indian Ocean.
The news that I just received is that the Chinese ambassador received satellite image of floating objects in the southern corridor, and they will be sending ships to verify.
This is the latest Chinese satellite image that could provide a lead. As with other such images, there's nothing yet to say that what it shows is linked to the missing plane. The search planes returned to an Air Force base near Perth on Saturday at the end of another long day. They start again on Sunday with little to go on but hope as the hunt for flight MH370 enters its third week.
And to Pakistan, at least 40 people died in a collision between passenger buses and trucks on a coastal highway in southwest Pakistan.
At least 40 people have died in a collision in Pakistan involving 2 buses and 2 trucks. More than 30 others have been injured, some seriously, and it's feared the number of dead could rise. The crash happened on a coastal highway in the southwest of the country. Witnesses said one of the trucks was carrying oil drums. The buses had cans of oil, petrol and diesel on their roofs, all of which fueled the resulting inferno. Relatives gathered at a mortuary in Karachi in search of family members. One of my nephews, aged between 28 and 30, is among the dead, this man says. I've come to identify the body. I have 8 relatives missing. Road accidents are common in Pakistan. Many vehicles are badly maintained and driving standards are poor.
Turkey's Tayyip Erdogan's decision to ban Twitter has triggered furious reactions around the world, with some calling it a digital coup. The move has highlighted a problem that social media will face in the event of unpredictable political obstacles as they increase their business abroad.
Twitter and its dedicated army of users may be getting the last laugh, staging a digital coup after Turkey's prime minister, a heavy Twitter user himself, blocked the social media site. The Twitter ban came ahead of bitterly contested elections. Tech-savvy Turks, including the country's own president, quickly found a workaround with a little help from Twitter itself. Mashable's Lance Ulanov.
The really fascinating thing now is right now what they're doing is they're spray painting on walls the DNS changes you need to make to re-access Twitter. I mean, that's how the public has changed. That's how tech-savvy people have come.
The hashtag Twitter is blocked in Turkey among the top trending hashtags in the world. The ban came after Twitter ignored requests to remove content related to a political scandal. But while this incident likely won't impact Twitter's bottom line, it's not the first time politics has gotten in the way of social media. And some countries, like China, are more effective in their bans.
Well, that is a big risk, certainly, because the biggest markets for these social media networks are the developing nations, are the nations where they haven't really built a stronghold or gotten a foothold. You know, in the U.S., they're saturated, so they're looking outside the U.S. to really grow.
Those risks are no secret to investors, says S&P Capital IQ's Scott Kessler.
These companies, to a large extent, highlight pretty extensively in the context of public SEC filings that there are risks related to countries and governments that choose to not make these offerings available in a broad sense or in a selective sense. And the fact is that really we don't see these as very impactful to these companies or their businesses.
Twitter says it hopes official service in Turkey can be restored soon.
An Egyptian court on Saturday adjourned the trial of ousted Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak until March the 25th after Egypt's public prosecution revealed evidence they had gathered in the case.
Mubarak, who faces charges related to the killing of protesters in the 2011 revolution, which eventually toppled him, appeared in a dark suit and tie in the courtroom cell. Seated on either side of Mubarak were his 2 sons, Alaa and Gamal, who are facing corruption charges. Former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli also appeared in court along with 6 of his senior aides. They faced charges of giving orders to kill anti-government protesters.
النهارده بدأت المرافعات. النيابة العامة اترفعت. Today, public prosecutor lawyer Wael Hussein began the proceedings by reading out evidence gathered from testimonies of those who were wounded during the revolution, family members of those killed, and some police officers. He also said the evidence gathered from these testimonies were further strengthened by technical reports such as weapons and ammunition records. This is all from the perspective of the prosecution.
Mubarak was sentenced to life in prison in 2012 for complicity in the killing of demonstrators in the uprising that toppled him in 2011. He successfully appealed and is facing a retrial on those charges. He is also accused in 2 other cases of corruption that have yet to come to court. Mubarak was released from jail last year after winning his appeal, but he is still being kept under house arrest at a military hostel in the Cairo suburb of Maadi.
From North Africa to South America, a blast targeting a drug rehabilitation center and homeless shelter kills 4 people and injures 11 in Medellin, Colombia.
Colombian forensic experts are on the gruesome scene where 4 people were killed and 11 others injured in a blast. The explosion targeted a drug rehabilitation center and homeless shelter in the city of Medellin. Police say drug gangs who saw the rehab center as a threat to their drug-dealing business were behind the explosion.
Without a doubt, it has something to do with these criminal gangs that sell drugs to them. And then they punish them because they are being treated by the majority, by the institutions, and by the police, so their business will diminish.
Police say about 1 kilogram of explosives were used in the blast.
Charles Gord, the former right-hand man of ex-President Laurent Gbagbo, has been transferred to the International Criminal Court to face charges of crimes against humanity, according to the Ivorian government.
The 42-year-old former youth leader faces 4 counts of crimes against humanity at the court based in The Hague over post-electoral violence in 2010-2011. The former youth leader for Gbagbo, who is also jailed at The Hague, was arrested in Ghana more than a year ago and extradited to Ivory Coast, but the authorities were hesitant to send him to the War Crimes Court, which issued a warrant for his arrest in September.
Des mandats d'arrêt ont été décernés contre des suspects.
Arrest warrants were issued against suspects on the run. These include Mr. Charles Bleglaud, Ati of Philip, Kesi Raymond Kodulu, ambassador to Israel, and Analhulo Domolo, a former government spokesman of Laurent Gbagbo.
The Ivorian crisis started with Gbagbo's refusal to concede defeat in November 2010 elections, sparking armed clashes that killed more than 3,000 people.
Madame la Présidente,
His election rival Alassane Ouattara, now the president, eventually ousted him thanks to the international military backing. Gbagbo, who was transferred to the Netherlands in late 2011, also faces 4 counts of crimes against humanity, but the court has yet to confirm the charges, pending further investigation.
le chef de l'État peut, en cas de trouble,
Discovery of gas reserves off the coast of Cyprus are giving renewed impetus to peace talks between the divided islands, north and south, and some optimism that natural gas will provide relief for the island's crippled economy.
The Aphrodite field just off the coast of Cyprus holds the promise of about 140 billion cubic meters of natural gas. While it is not expected to be developed until at least 2018, there's already a lot riding on the find. Besides a much-needed cash injection for the Cypriot economy, the discovery helped revive political talks between the north and south of the divided island.
This situation now with the hydrocarbon, maybe now is the time. If not now the time, I don't know when we're going to lose this problem. And also maybe it's a good chance for Cyprus to go ahead again economically, I mean, because really our people in the last years, here, the second year now, we face a lot of problems after what's happened.
To become a gas hub for valuable Israeli and Lebanese reserves, the Nicosia government would need a rapprochement with Ankara. Turkey's economy, the 18th largest in the world, needs gas to fuel its growing manufacturing sector. Even though it is unclear whether the Aphrodite field is large enough to warrant its own plant, many are pinning their hopes on the island's budding gas sector to save the economy.
What we're hoping, and it's happening already, is that in addition to getting the direct benefit of selling the gas, we will get the indirect benefit of these companies basing their operations here in Cyprus.
While some are enthusiastic, many Cypriots are cautiously optimistic.
I have big hopes for gas and petroleum that it will help Cyprus if the foreigners will let us handle it on our own.
I think it will help, but it won't happen very soon. And I believe that until it happens, maybe the people and the economy will improve slowly.
Compared to Qatar's North Dome, which has about 51 trillion cubic meters, the Aphrodite field is small. But the find holds promise for the divided island with an ailing economy.
And with that, we come to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at the conversations that get us started during the week on our social media platform On Trend.